So for try1, we're going to look at creating an actual form. So for this assignment, let's pretend that we have been contracted or we're working for kind of a startup company, and there's a lot of things that haven't really been created. Or maybe it's an existing company and they're just kind of going through having things become more formalized and having a consistent look and feel for everything. So for example, something that you'll see is a lot of companies and businesses use forms. Well, one of the things that helps with forms, if you're dealing with clients or even if you're dealing in-house, is having a consistent look when it comes to forms. So we're going to work on creating a fillable form that we're going to create using InDesign, but we're also going to give it kind of a common look throughout. So if we are the designers, we're going to come up with a look and feel using some of the things that they need to create various forms that all have kind of a consistent look and brand throughout, right? So how we're going to start off with this is we're always going to have something that we can look at. So for example, you will see there's an example form that kind of shows what are things that you should be looking to have in your form. So for example, you're going to say it's going to be a graphic design request form. You want to make sure that you have like contact information and some basic things. The parts that have the X's are things that you do not need. I do give some information here, so feel free to download that mock-up form. It may look different in your assignment, but just know that's going to give you kind of the basics and the idea of it. So what I've gone ahead and done is I did go ahead and download what I needed. So I'm going to first of all open up my form so I can look at, or at least my form mock-up, so I can kind of see what's going on. So basically here it says your information needs to go here, change to output method, talk about online, blog, social media, video. I give you kind of what to update your form with. But so let's look at how would we tackle this form. So when we're opening up InDesign, we're going to choose our letters, information here. Again, work in the workspace that makes you comfortable. So I'm going to open up to my pages. And the first thing I want to do is tackle on this form is the basic look and feel of my form. Now, imagine that you are working for a design company. It could be your very own design company, which is probably going to be best. So let's say that you are a freelance designer and you're going to create some forms that you're going to be able to use with your clients. Well, the first thing you're going to want is to be able to have some information or maybe a logo of some sort that is going to be consistent on all of your forms, right? So anytime we're going to be using elements that maybe would repeat on, let's say, different pages, we want to make sure that we're going to go into our A parent or our master page, which is going to be not this first page, but up here. Now, each one of these pages represents which side of the page that it's going to be on. Is it going to be on this side or this side? So we're going to click on this first one. We're going to double click. And we're going to set up just kind of the head part of our form right now. So for this one, I think the way that I want to do it is I want to have an area. I'm going to use my rectangle tool. And if you notice these pink areas, these are going to be what I call the safe zone, so within printable areas. So if you go extend past it, chances are you may end up with it looking funky or getting cut off because it's too close to the paper edge, right? Now I am going to be using just some boxes to kind of lay out what's going to go where. So I've got one that's going to be my kind of more of my background, and it'll eventually become a text box that I'll be changing here. But I'm just kind of putting some areas in so that way I know what's going to happen here. And I am going to kind of divide it and separate it, and you'll see here in a second why. And again, if it's not correctly placed, don't freak out. You can always adjust it and then fix it later, right? So here's a box that I have. Right now it is transparent because there's nothing in it. So I am going to take my logo and I'm going to bring it in here. I'm going to right click, tell it fitting, fit content proportionally. Now obviously this is a little bit too small. If I double click inside here, I can actually increase it, and that's exactly what we're going to do, is we're going to increase it proportionately. Oops. And if you hold your shift key, it'll actually increase proportionately, and you can kind of move it around and to fit into the parameters that you need it to fit. So I'm going to make it, reduce it just a little bit, and I think I've got it pretty much in the center, and I can always adjust it and then center it, right? So that's that. Now what I'm going to do is I want to sample the color from the background and use it on my box. So if I just select here, you'll see that I've gotten my box here. Now the other thing I can do is I can also sample a color on any kind of box, and it's going to put that color there. So you can see I've got this box here and I've got a box here. Now I can place my text, or I can literally click inside of it and then tell it what the text is going to be. So for me, graphic design job request form, right? So I'm going to make it caps. And we'll see how good my spelling is here in just a second. Same thing, I can actually sample the color that I want, and then I can tell it, you know, where is it going to position, how is it going to show up, and then I'm going to go into my type table and my paragraph, and then I can also adjust it and then have it center justified. Now I am going to pick a font that is going to look pretty much kind of how I think it should look, and then I can increase it, and then we'll pretend that I'm happy with that. Otherwise we'll be here all day until I find just the right one. The other thing you can do is with any of these, you can always add a different color to it, right? So let's say that we already know that these colors are going to be the colors I'm going to be working with a lot. So I'm going to open up my color swatches, and you're going to see here what's going to happen in a second. So I've got this color, and I'm literally going to drag and drop this swatch from the top down here, and you'll see that it's an RGB. So this yellow is going to be the color that I want to use, and I can always look at, you know, what is my swatch name. It's going to name it whatever the color is right here. Now the same thing, I've got this blue. I am going to grab this blue and drag it down here, and this is kind of how you can set up the colors swatches in your document, so that way you can repeat them and reuse them over and over, right? And you'll be able to work with these. So I'm going to move that over here, and then I can go ahead and say, okay, do I want to maybe put a stroke on this? And so if I want to use this stroke, I've added it here. I might make it a little bit thicker just so we can see, and then I may also add a stroke, and then I'm going to add that 2 point just so it'll match with what I've got going on here. So now I've got that, I've put my logo in, and then if I'm looking at what my assignment is, then I can go ahead and fill in the rest of the information. Now I'm not going to design the whole thing because I think you guys kind of get at least the basic gist. Big things I want you to take away from here is you're only doing this right now on your master page in the top, because these are going to be the areas that are going to repeat over and over on every single form that you were to create. Meaning, so if I'm going to come in here, I'm going to have some text. So I'm going to say right here, we're looking for a few things, meaning I'm going to be looking to see, is the information that you're putting in there easy to read? Is the information, you know, designed in a way that it's not conflicting with anything else? So if I'm looking up here, have my email, have the basic information, and then you may want to put your website. So again, I'm just going to put this here, center it. I'm also going to make sure that everything is set up the way that it needs to be. I've got that, and bring this down and center it, and then I'm going to put that right there. Now what I am going to do is maybe change my font, because my font should be pretty easy to read, especially if it's information I need for people to be able to see. I don't want to go in and use crazy fonts or anything like that. Now that I've got at least the part that I feel like is going to be the same on every single page. Maybe you have on every single form a client signature page. It just depends. But again, just know that now if I click on page 1, it's here. If I were to go and tell it to insert another page, notice that it kind of does it on the opposite side. Now, if I do another page, it will have it on here. So if I want it to appear on all of my pages, because right now I have facing pages, and in case you did that, you can go into your document setup and let's uncheck facing pages. So having unchecked facing pages, you'll see that it is looking and it's not applying any of it, meaning because we need to put this information and we need to paste it, oops, actually on our other page. So I'm going to paste it in place, stop it, I'm going to paste, and I'm going to move it up to the top. I'm going to group it first, and I'm going to align it to my page, and oops, probably should have aligned it to margins. There we go. So now you can see it has been put on every single page, and then I would click on page 1 and begin to create the rest of my form, right? So with that, now what we would do is we would go ahead and put in all of the basic information that a form should have. So let's say, for example, it is going to be client name. Again, you do not have to follow this to a T per se, but like this one has these big lines. I don't know if I want all those lines. What I am going to do is maybe have a box here that says client name. And keep in mind, just because there's a box there does not mean that that box will show up. So, and what I mean by that, if I click on view and click on view overprint and I deselect anything, it's going to show me what it would look like on a regular piece of paper. If I click on view with overprint, it'll show my boxes. So make sure that you're viewing it and seeing what actually is appearing and what's not going to appear. So let's say we have client name. I have that here, and I want the client name to be equally spaced throughout. So I'm gonna leave it. Maybe I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. Maybe right here. I do want it to be kind of centered, and I actually want it to be. Oops. I want it to be left justified, and you'll see here in a second why, and it's going to be centered here. Now I'm going to take this, and if I click on this object right here and tell it that I want to take that object and I want to kind of go through and step and repeat, meaning based off of my size here, I'm going to say this is going to be let's see, I want it to be, the height is 0.4 inches and the width is 1.73. Let's make this 1.8 just so it's a little bit easier. 1.8, 1.4 in height. Okay, and you're going to see this here in a second when I go to step and repeat. So step and repeat, I want to create 3 areas that go down, right? And so I'm going to say horizontally, I don't want it to do anything, but vertically, I want it to be 0.4. I'm going to click OK. Notice that now it literally repeated my information here. So now I can literally just come back in here and I'm going to say phone, and I'm going to add a colon, and then I can come in here and I can say project title, and then maybe I want to put email. Okay, now with having that same concept, what I would do then is I'm going to take just a regular box, or I could even take a rectangle frame tool. I would probably take the rectangle frame tool, and then we're going to create a box or a rectangle, and it is going to be 0.4 in height, and we are going to give it a stroke, and you'll see why here in a second. So if I've got it where it's right here, again, I can do the same thing. I'm going to say step and repeat. It's going to take on whatever I had last. I'm going to click OK. Now, when I click on view and overprint, you'll notice that I've got 4 perfect boxes. And then I can go in and let's say I want to create another divider. I'm going to put a divider here. I'm going to fill it with this color. And then I could put the rest of my form information. And so that's kind of what you're going to do, is you're going to create your form, make it to where people can actually read your font. Think about that a lot when you're designing, that it's going to be, and you don't want to use a bunch of different fonts. So for example, I may actually use this font and I could sample it and use that throughout. So if I were to highlight it, and then I use my eyedropper tool, I can actually use that. And what it does is it samples everything, meaning even down to if it's left justified or center justified. So again, I can highlight. Now that I've got this one correct, I'm going to click in, and then notice that it changes everything. And I've done that. And I've done that. So now I've got just my basic form kind of started. And this is what you're going to be working on for the rest of your assignment, is you're going to finish off your form with all the information that is in the mock-up that I provided.